Get 3 months of local news for just 99 cents a month. You'll get unlimited access to the news you need to stay engaged and connected to your community. Visit DuluthNewsTribune.com/subscribe now to get 3 months of local news for only 99 cents a month.
Hello, Northlanders. It's Tuesday, August 20th. I'm Wyatt Buckner with the Duluth News Tribune Minute, presented by Minnesota Power Employees Credit Union.
The average MPECU member saves over $785 a year in better rates and lower fees. And with MPECU, every ATM is your ATM. With their free checking program, you get ATM fee reimbursements at any ATM anywhere in the U.S. Check out Minnesota Power Employees Credit Union's services online at mpecu.com or visit their offices in downtown Duluth, Arrowhead Road, or Miller Trunk Highway.
Now here's a look at today's headlines. Duluth's municipal water system sends an average of 13 million gallons of water to more than 100,000 people in and around the city every day. Reports filed annually show Duluth's water, drawn from Lake Superior at the Lakewood pumping station and then given minimal treatment, is clean and safe, exceeding federal safe drinking water standards. So why then is an accidental release of 500,000 gallons of Duluth drinking water considered the likely culprit in killing more than 1,000 fish and other aquatic creatures in Tischer Creek on August 1st? Biologists say it's likely the small amounts of chemicals added to make the lake water safe for people are what made it unsafe for fish. According to reports filed with the state, Duluth drinking water contains chlorine and fluoride as the only chemicals intentionally added to the Lake Superior water. While that level of chlorine is enough to kill E. coli and other microorganisms that might make people sick, it is entirely safe for people and pets to drink every day. But brook trout, crayfish, and other aquatic creatures are another story. Every good angler knows not to put their minnows or leeches in tap water because that little bit of chlorine is too much for their systems to handle. The same for aquariums and backyard fish ponds. Dale Hoff, scientist at the Duluth-based Great Lakes Toxicology and Ecology Division of the Environmental Protection Agency, said any living thing that gets oxygen from water is susceptible to even low levels of chemicals in the water. Chlorine would eventually evaporate out of the water, making the water safe for fish at that point. It also would dilute to harmless levels as it reached downstream in Lake Superior. Other issues could have been the temperature of the water, too warm for trout, or reduced oxygen in the city water. But because Duluth water is stored underground and is usually very cold, and because the incident killed many different organisms, those scenarios are less likely. It's also possible the rush of water could have picked up something toxic between the reservoir and the creek. An MPCA official on Monday said the results from toxicology tests on fish tissue and water samples drawn from the creek immediately after the incident were not yet available. The I-35 and I-535 connections through the Twin Ports Interchange project in Duluth will open this morning. I-535 was closed in 2021 for reconstruction, and the reopening date was postponed due to the discovery of human remains. A one-lane bypass has been temporarily constructed at the I-535 Garfield Avenue interchange to facilitate the reopening of the I-535 connection between Wisconsin and Minnesota. The Highway 53 bridges to 21st Avenue West to access Lincoln Park will be completed this fall. The Highway 53 connections to I-35 and I-535 are expected to be completed in fall 2025. The Radisson Hotel Duluth Harborview was recently listed for $15.8 million by California-based commercial real estate company Marcus & Millichap. Built in 1970, the Radisson has been an iconic structure of the city's skyline. Located at 505 West Superior Street, the 16-story, full-service circular hotel has 196 rooms, 6 event spaces, an indoor heated pool, hot tub, sauna, and business center. On average, rooms are booked through the Choice Hotels revenue management system for $100 to $350 a night, depending upon occupancy and demand. The price nearly doubles for a room like the Legend Suite, where Elvis Presley rented the entire 15th floor and stayed in while performing in Duluth in 1976 and 1977. Others of noteworthy status have opted for the larger room as well. The top floor features a rotating restaurant, Harbor 360, which provides views of Duluth's hillside, city, harbor, and Lake Superior. A 5-horsepower motor runs the wheel that spins the restaurant during its hours of operation. The property received $3 million in extensive repairs and restoration work in March 2013 to fully replace the hotel's mechanical components after a water pipe burst. The property was purchased in April 2014 for $8.2 million, according to St. Louis County tax documents. The Radisson is currently owned through tenancy in common among 4 partners: Duluth Associates SPE, Duluth Holdings SPE, Duluth Catings SPE, and Empire for Duluth. The sellers have begun the application process for historic tax credits, which they hope will entice a new buyer thinking of future renovations. For a preview of an upcoming story, Dan Williamson joins us now with a special guest.
Thanks, Wyatt. I'm joined by one of our colleagues, the great Jay Gabler, Duluth News Tribune arts and entertainment reporter. And Jay has a story that we'll be able to read in Wednesday's print edition of the Duluth News Tribune. It's also a story that you can find on our website before that at duluthnewstribune.com. Jay, the great Minnesota get-together is fast approaching. What more can you tell us?
Yes, I decided to write a story about the State Fair and the Northland, and whether Northlanders go to the State Fair, why they do, why they don't.
What made you decide to tackle this topic?
So I moved back to Duluth, having lived here as a kid and then moved away for most of my adult years. I came back a couple of years ago, having recently been working and living in Minneapolis. And, in the Twin Cities, the State Fair is inescapable. All the local media go there. They do live broadcasts. All the papers are there. The traffic changes. You can't avoid the fact that the State Fair is happening. And you might love it, you might hate it, but it's a huge fact of life. And when I moved up here, I was surprised to find that people seem to think and talk about the State Fair somewhat differently. And a number of people, told me, frankly, just in casual conversations of the last couple of years, that they don't really bother with the State Fair, which I thought was interesting. That's not something I had heard a lot, among the people I knew and still know in the Twin Cities. So I thought, interesting to kind of dig into that and write an article about the Northland's relationship with the State Fair.
And in pursuing this story, what did you learn?
A bunch of things. It's been a fascinating story, and I really appreciate all the trust people have put in me, as always, in reporting. But I had a fun visit up to the St. Louis County Fair, which I wrote about in a column a couple of weeks ago. But I included some information in this article, this new article that I didn't include in that column, about what people at the St. Louis County Fair in Chisholm thought about the State Fair. And so that was interesting to get their takes. And as you might suspect, they are a little overwhelmed by it. But one of the coolest pieces of information that I got, like chunks of information, I know even the word is like vat of information that I was able to use for this story, is the State Fair actually shared with us ticket sales information broken down by zip code. So you could figure out, where are people coming from who buy tickets to the State Fair? And you could actually have some hard numbers to compare, say, the Twin Cities to the Northland to other parts of the state. So I have some results from that investigation. It's a lot to go into, but I will say, Dan, one thing that surprised me is that knowing that the Northland does not have the kind of crop-friendly soil that there is down in southwestern Minnesota, say, or southern Minnesota generally, I had a hypothesis that, maybe if Northlanders don't seem to be super into the State Fair, it's because, we know, just because of the fact of the ground under our feet, you're not likely to win a lot of agricultural competitions, at least in terms of crops. We have livestock up here, of course, but the soil is not the same as down south. So I thought, well, maybe that's the thing. Maybe down south, they get very into all the crop science and all those competitions and what have you, and are much more likely to go. And I found that is not necessarily the case, that it has a lot to do with a simpler explanation, which is simply distance. It takes a couple hours or more to get to the State Fair from Duluth. And there are other parts of the Northland where you're talking about more than a couple of hours if you're going to be getting down to Falcon Heights. So that turns out to be a big factor.
Absolutely. And of course, the State Fair this year kicks off on Thursday and wraps up on Labor Day.
I'll be there.
All right, Jay, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Dan.
And again, you can find Jay's article in Wednesday's print edition of the Duluth News Tribune. It's also a story that you can find on our website before that at duluthnewstribune.com. Wyatt, back to you.
Thanks, Dan. Now here's a look at your forecast, brought to you by Superior Telegram's history podcast, Archive Dive.
Good morning. Today's forecast for the Duluth area, sunny and cool today with a high temperature right around 70 degrees, maybe the low 70s in Duluth. Southeast winds around 5 to 10. It'll likely be a few degrees warmer in northern Wisconsin. For tonight, becoming mostly cloudy, temperatures dropping down into the 50s with a fairly light wind. And then sunshine likely to come back on Wednesday with temperatures warming a few degrees into the mid to possibly upper 70s. Southeast winds around 5 to 10. Thursday will be breezy with temps again in the mid 70s. Chance of showers and thunderstorms by Thursday night. I'm Storm Tracker meteorologist John Wheeler.
Thank you to Archive Dive for their support. The monthly history podcast, hosted by Superior Telegram reporter Maria Lockwood, dips into the archives of historic events, people, and places around Superior and Douglas County. A new episode titled The Hero the Blotnick Bridge is Named For is now available at superiortelegram.com or wherever you also get this podcast. Reporting for today's episode was done by John Myers, Shelley Nelson, Brielle Bredston, and Jay Gabler. Thank you for listening to Duluth News Tribune Minute. Have a great day, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.